Hello?
It's happening again.
Oh, boy. All right, I'm on it. We need you back in the field. We got more reports. Here.
What's this?
It's the Bureau's latest scanner. Now, there's something out there. The Bureau wants you to see it. I want you to see it.
I want to see it.
Well, good. Get going.
Hey, good afternoon out there. Hope everyone's well and enjoying the pre-holiday festivities, and happy Hanukkah, peace on earth. Well, this is John Halpern, and I'm here at Radio Roxbury. Welcome to the Tuning Fork FM live from the Catskills with Emily Harris and John Halpern. We're bringing you contemporary art, music, film, poetry, and comedy, all in the next hour. Join us in our ride through the Catskills and abroad, meeting new people, doing new things. I wanted to just say hi to, first of all, my partner, life partner, and professional partner, Emily Harris, out there working with friends in the city, New York. Here it's a sunny day. Some snow has fallen the last couple of days. It's probably about 32 degrees outside, just enough to keep the snow from freezing, except in the direct sunlight. Friends of ours are out there in Amsterdam, Holland, Margaret Vibmer, and Domenico or Mimo in Naples, my brother Alex, people listening in like Pia, and well, so many people. And we're going to hear a little bit today from Dr. Nida. And unfortunately, Robert Thurman can't be with us because he's in New York City fundraising for Tibet House and Menla. We'll go into that in a few minutes. There's a history of spiritual kind of retreat in the Catskills is quite interesting, and a topic that we visit frequently here on the Tuning Fork FM. Also, a project by the Institute for Cultural Activism International is also called the Tuning Fork, which people can find out about on their website, instituteforculturalactivism.org. And there you'll find interviews with over 40 people that are live broadcasts recorded originally on Zoom. So you can move through the archives of a tab called Episodes and find these great interviews with cultural activists around the world. Those are individual artists and often art collectives, communities who are working toward social transformation through creative use of cultural materials and cultural skills, making art to transform society, toward the benefit of the environment, a sustainable environment, and toward social equity. Well, they've had over 40 people. I happen to be a co-founder with Emily of the Institute for Cultural Activism International, and we're just very thrilled that we can expand our contact with the community through WIOX 91.3 FM. I had an experience back in 1987 when I was editing a film called Joseph Beuys' Transformer. And Joseph Beuys was an interesting person and someone that I eventually met, although when I was young, in my teens and early 20s, I didn't take a liking to Joseph Beuys' work. He had been in the Second World War. He was a Nazi. I felt that his work was highly self-mystifying or mythifying, and very involved with his own experience, kind of self-absorbed. And I felt it was so cryptic that it was difficult for us in America to understand. It was also sort of centered around the patriarch, the heroic icon of the male artist. And I felt this was an inappropriate sort of format. Now, let's bear in mind that there's a huge distinction between art making and the art industry. So the way in which I met Beuys was through the gallery system in New York City when I was a young man going to art school. And this is like 1974, 73, 75, around these years when I was exposed to work like Beuys. And he was a kind of self-described shaman. And from the shamanistic point of view, which we can perhaps understand more about today, and sitting here in the Catskills, there are quite a lot of esoteric teachings and practices here. Now, some of these things have been going on for thousands of years around the world. Healers using medicinal materials from the earth, invoking spiritual states of mind and sending healing energy and vibes into the world, kind of like, I hope, the vibes coming out of this radio station today through the Tuning Fork FM. Tuning Fork, by the way, is a kind of metaphor for us to tune in to topics and tune into each other. And that brings up an interesting subject. But I was in the middle of editing this movie called Joseph Beuys' Transformer after some strenuous efforts that my friends and I, particularly Jim Merriweather, a partner of mine, we were involved with a construction project that allowed me to immerse myself in the editing of this film. And what was interesting was I had sort of promised myself not to leave the video editing station in my apartment until the film was edited. Lo and behold, the minute I sort of made that promise to myself, I got a phone call. A man called me up and said, John, this is Phil, and I'd like you to come on a trip around the United States with the Dalai Lama, Richard Gere, Robert Thurman, John Avedon, and, he wanted me to come and film with a 16-millimeter film camera, and I had to sort of say yes because I thought this was a wonderful opportunity to learn more about Buddhism and what eventually would become the founders' launching of Tibet House. Here's a little clip from a film that I made called First 30 Years Tibet House.
The whole country was abducted, and the world didn't notice. they bring an ancient culture intact. And delivered it completely whole to the West. They walked out of Tibet. They didn't take buses or planes. They walked out.
That was Philip Glass at the beginning of the film that we made called First 30 Years, Tibet House. And this film was executive produced by Nina Thurman. Nina and Bob Thurman met back in the 60s when Bob was still a renunciate, a celibate monk in the Tibetan Buddhist tradition. And as I mentioned earlier, Bob is doing some fundraising today for Tibet House. And you can Google Tibet House and find at tibethouseus.org, I believe, their information and fundraising and such stuff like that. Every year there's this huge concert at Carnegie Hall, which is a wonderful experience to meet contemporary artists like Laurie Anderson and David Byrne and David Bowie, and of course the Tibetan musicians like Tenzin Chogyal and Philip Glass, who's sort of the ringleader and curator of the program at Tibet House every New Year for Tibetans. It's usually in the middle or end of February. So coming to the subject of this shamanism in the Catskills and the spiritual sorts of refuge that people find here in the mountains, around the world, actually, of course. And I want to talk for a minute about a workshop that I just attended with my wife, Emily Harris, and this was called the Yoga of Bliss. And it's an interesting thing to try to make these practices accessible to people who don't know about Buddhism or other types of spiritual endeavors and disciplines. But the technique that this particular program was referencing and teaching was something called Tantra. Now, there's a sort of understanding among a lot of spiritual people of all religions that all of us are all interconnected. So there's something that keeps us divided. And in these very dark times that we're experiencing today, and this age of divisionism, separatism, and individualism, it's interesting to note that lots of these secret teachings means teachings that have been more or less protected and preserved in the mountains of Tibet or the Himalayas. Many of these teachings are coming out. It's interesting that happens at a dark time in society and in the world. You can almost see it, or I do, as a kind of medicine. And the crazy thing is that when I met the Dalai Lama, what really blew me away was this man who had been more or less exiled from his country of Tibet by the invasion of the Chinese across the border. So in 1959, the Dalai Lama, based on a sort of prediction by a spiritual channel, a person who goes into a trance, this is their job, and they instructed the Dalai Lama, based on their intuition, to follow a certain path through the mountains at a certain moment and leave Tibet. So I thought this was just astonishing that the Dalai Lama had no rancor, no adversarial energy or aggression toward the Chinese. At the same time, read the Dalai Lama's book, Be Angry, in which he says, well, we should be angry toward the systems and circumstances that are unjust, that exploit human beings and nature. and remain focused not on the individuals who are perhaps the perpetrators or protagonists of these negative circumstances we're observing today, but rather the structure. Look at the structure. How do we analyze, deconstruct, and transform those structures so that what exists perhaps as a system of apparent destruction, like the exploitation of natural resources, the immense amount of pollution, the human rights abuses, and things that seem to be so much in our minds these days. Look at these structures and see if we can use the structures, change them in some way, and perhaps transform the outcomes into more beneficial outcomes together. So meditation and Tantra is very much about removing or dissolving our obstacles between each other that exist in our minds, using yoga activities to, as like a solvent, to dissolve these barriers that divide me from you, that prevent me from really feeling you and you from feeling me, because I'm playing a role, I'm projecting myself, you're projecting yourself into the world. Our perceptions are colored by our visions of ourselves, and how to let ourselves off the hook and feel interconnected with everything and open our intuition rather than our conceptual rationalizing minds, and then really be real and be in the world. So here's part of an interview with Dr. Nida, and let's listen to it for a while.
Thank you for inviting me here for your interview.
Lucky me, lucky us.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And thank you for everything that you've done during this retreat. It's really accessible, accessible, mm-hmm. and practical.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
And I wonder often, and do you prefer to be called Dr. Nida, Gela? What do you prefer?
How you want.
You have a Christian name?
So
you
I
like?
always say, when I'm in the medical work, consultation, doing therapies, patient call me Dr. Nida. My spiritual student, they call me Genla. Genla means teacher, right, in Tibetan.
Is Genla like Geshe?
Genla, similar Geshe, but it's called the Ge-Gen, Gewa means the virtue, Gen means old. Like virtually you are old, means you have more knowledge, That's why you can teach.
Differentiate knowledge?
Geshe is a degree. Geshe is like a PhD degree.
Yeah.
When you get a Geshe, you get a PhD degree, right?
Yeah. And they call also doctor, like Thurman. Professor, but he's also doctor.
Yeah.
In Germany, they call doctor professor.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. Yeah.
But so is there a differentiation in Tibetan between knowledge and wisdom?
Knowledge and wisdom, yeah. They call knowledge, normally they call yonten.
Yonten.
But yonten is the knowledge,
Like the contents.
Yeah. Yonten.
Then the application of contents or wisdom of contents, wisdom, that's what's the word?
Wisdom is yeshe.
Yeshe.
Yeshe means you know something.
Yeah.
Originally, it's there.
Primordially.
Yeah. Or
inherent.
Yeah.
So it's not...
Ye means, primordial state or original state. She means you see, you understand, you know. Yeah. So it's like yeshe is not necessary you logically understand. It's something there already. You don't know the logic why, but you know it is, right? So that's why professor translated as intuition. Probably that's close.
When we hear about intuition from Dr. Nida, he said in a few minutes we can hear it, that this is not a logical process. It's an intuitive process which relies, let's say, on a physical intelligence. So here it's interesting that distinction between knowledge and wisdom, and I said knowledge is like the content of knowing something, like the material, you got it. Like there's knowledge in a book, there's knowledge in a mind. And how we use the knowledge or relate to it has to do with wisdom and with the intuitive processes, for example. And to me, I think, and because artists, right, we use intuition a lot. Mm-hmm. But it seems as though intuition is a kind of expression of interconnectivity, a kind of cognitive, evidence of interconnectivity, knowledge of interconnectivity and reality.
Yeah, intuition doesn't talk about the logics. Right, there's no logic explanation.
No concept.
Yeah, maybe knowledge comes with research, causality, why it happens, this and that, right? That's called the knowledge. You go in a logical study. Intuitive is there's no logical understanding, but you know. Right? So that's why in Tibetan word probably Yenten and Yeshe goes that way. But that's more terminology. That's why I don't like to translate Tibetan words into English. So that, it's a normal problem. It's called getting lost in translations.
Yeah. When we talk about wisdom and inherent wisdom and unborn wisdom and this kind of thing, our essential channel, is it like a kind of inherently wise? Is it inherently intelligent? And do we use the techniques to awaken this intelligence, to reanimate it?
Yeah. Central channel or our Vajra body, there are two expressions. First one is Gombeta, means your visualization. You visualize in different size, different colors, and different lens, different forms. It can be different. It's not same for all teachings. They talk different. They express different way, and that's called the Gompetsa. It means you use that moment for your meditation. And then there's a Nepetsa, means the central channel. You are born with it.
Okay. When you say use that moment, do you mean use
meditative state?
Huh?
When you meditate, you use that channel.
Okay.
So if you are just doing 9 purification breathing, maybe you are visualizing the central channel as a blue color. That's a very common expression. But then when you do 2 more, it says outside is white, inside is red. And then people try to say, oh, why its color is changed, So it's a psychophysical. It's more energy. What color you think it comes, right? You see a color in your dream. You see a white flower in your dream, but you're seeing a white flower. If you're not lucid in your dreaming, your dream is you're not lucid, you think it's a white flower. But the moment you become lucid, you say yellow, that one become yellow. You say red, that one become red. Blue, that one become blue. So then I ask you, what is the color of that flower, right? It's your projection, it's your perception. So central channel is like that.
The understanding of the vision of the central channel is like that. But is there...
That's called the meditative central channel. That's why we call it Gompetsa. And when you meditate, that moment, I said the moment, while you are meditating, then you visualize that way, and then that one can manifest any colors and any forms, right? So that's why we cannot say, oh, this is right or that is wrong. Everybody's right. Like the flower in your dream, what color it is?
Whatever.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
exactly.
It's a dream flower.
Yeah. That's why it's imagine the channel. It's the same thing. It's the same thing.
So in other words,
if you think it's white, it's white. If you think it's blue, it's a blue.
Regardless, you work with it. And here, for example, when we talk about this channel, as I mentioned before, there are obstacles somehow in our minds, produced by our minds, perhaps through the conditioning we've had that we are an identity, we are a role, we identify with our pasts, we feel defined by our pasts, and that in our projections onto the world, we're seeing and relating to the world from a mind perspective, from the conditioned mind perspective. And so one of the techniques that is familiar to some practitioners of dreaming, that during one's dream, one can invent a dream, being aware that there is a dream, sort of creating the dream during the dream. And this is a kind of training that we can learn through breathing practices and some instruction from an experienced teacher or teachers. In that color can change.
You should not think it's like kind of its central nervous system
Right.
or its aorta, right? It's visible and tangible. So central channel is invisible, intangible.
The central channel that he's referring to is this sort of visualized tube that we can imagine is in front of our spinal columns. It runs from the top of our skulls down into our bellies. And it's a sort of very subtle kind of neurologic or nervous system. If the nerves are very fine and, delicate kind of fibers in the body, then the electricity that runs through our nerves creates these other channels. Now, it's possible that it goes the other way around, that the channels actually create the nerves and the flesh and the fluids of the body, and that kind of onboard intelligence of the channels becomes cognizance, becomes conscious mind through a kind of physical intelligence, which I think gets to be pretty interesting. So the way of sort of letting go of our identification, which always sort of blocks us from interacting clearly and perhaps with really good intentions, is to imagine a central channel and to work with that. And we're going to talk more about that now.
Right? And then if you meditate, through the power of meditation, you can feel it, existence of this energy tube or channel, and then you can imagine the color and size. So it manifests according to your perception.
The chakras, are they
The same?
some way related to central channel?
Of course.
Like plumbing?
Yeah. Chakras are the center, like a nuclear power station, right, where they really produce the energy, very subtle, powerful, pervasive energy. Those are the chakras. And channels are the wires, the connections, right? And then the central channel means the main one, and then the lateral ones are the secondary ones, and then they have more and more branches. In a way, if you look, it's similar like nervous system. There's central nervous system, there are branches and branches and branches. Similar way.
72,000 nerves, for example, in the acupuncture science. Is this correlation somehow?
There's some of them, they are similar, yeah. We talk about 72,000, the branch channels.
Branch. Is that part of Salung?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I just mentioned these words Salung to Dr. Nida. And Salung is a sort of science or method of relating to the energies in the body and the fluids in the body. The method you're using to teach the Karmamudra looks like kind of like duality, using some kind of duality model. to bring...
What's wrong with using a duality model? We are dual, right?
Yeah,
we are dual.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even you start a non-dual meditation, you start with dual.
Yeah.
Right. There's a meditator and there's a meditation. That's called the dual. What's the name of your meditation? It's called the non-dual. And there's a meditator. It's the meditator. So meditator thinking about non-dual, it's already base of dualism. Until the meditator disappears. Right?
So no personality necessary to meditate. No identity or self-image is necessary.
Of course. If it's a dual, there is identity. There is a you and your partner. Right? The you as you, physical you, or the you as a spiritual yourself, like a divine yourself, as a deity. This is your identity, who you see, right? You see as a human body, physical body, or you see as yourself, energy body, or the deity body. And that's your identification. That's why you say, oh, I'm Chakra Samvara. I'm that deity, I'm this.
So here we're discussing the sort of structure or architecture of a spiritual exercise. Call it a spiritual exercise because we probably don't have better words yet for these experiences, but as a kind of mind training or mental yoga training, we're actually discussing something called Tantra Mudra, and that's the yoga of bliss, or in other words, sexual union and sexual intercourse. In training the meditation during the process of sexual intercourse, there's several exercises. And one of the trainings for those exercises is to imagine this central energy channel. Now, it's so interesting at these moments in history where there's so much strife. For example, when we think about what happened in Tibet, and that out of that came extraordinary teachings from the Tibetan philosophy, medicine, and science, and that this sort of happened as a consequence of this genocide in Tibet. Here's a moment, comment about that from the film First 30 Years Tibet.
Place of ongoing vitality in Tibetan culture, inside and out.
Tibet House began with just a handful of people. Bob Thurman was one, Richard Gere was one, I was one. Melissa Matheson was also another one.
You know, if we allow them to be destroyed, what does it say about us?
These Tibet houses are so key because they are the cultural embassies of the Tibetan people.
And this one. This is Bob Thurman and Philip Glass commenting.
We did the Year of Tibet. 7,000 Tibetan events in 35 countries.
The tragedy of Tibet became a huge cultural windfall for the West. And not just for the West, but it also would be Australia, it would have been South America.
I'm that deity, I'm this deity, right? I'm Vajrayogini.
But it's temporary.
Yeah, everything is temporary. This body is temporary too.
So we can keep...
We will meet in 100 years.
Like last time.
Yeah. Everything is temporary. Right? There's nothing wrong with temporary. Everything is temporary. Right? Everything is changing except the change, as Buddha said.
In the West, now when we talk about this practice of Karmamudra, are the difficulties for Westerners to understand or to assimilate the experience of Karmamudra, are there obstacles or difficulties different than other cultures, than the Eastern culture? Is this these techniques were developed because there were these issues: separation, identity, dualism, projection?
I think when we talk about, in general, Karmamudra, there's always cultural understanding, right? And maybe in Chinese tradition, the Taoists, they talked about, they call it the house art, or art of house, Fangzhongshu, something like that. So they talked about this. Then the other spiritual tradition, they don't like these kind of things, and then they repress, right? It's one nation, different period of time. One tradition is supporting this, another tradition that didn't support this, right? So I think it's always like that, no? There's some culture is more open, but then it's closed. Like Kama Sutra in India, there used to be Kama Sutra temples and kind of very open, like a education system. But later it was maybe attacked by other systems. It's no. This kind of teaching should not spread, and this and that, right? So we are just talking the same nation. They have their cultural views, maybe different generations or different people. They have different views. Some of them they are very open, and some of them they're very against, right? But then later, Karmamudra is, I think, in the ancient time, the tantric teachers, they knew how any part of our human emotional states are used as a spiritual path, right? So in this case, Karmamudra is addressing more about desire,
right,
and attachment and love and passion. So you can ignore that part too. You say, okay, I just want to free myself. I don't want that. You can ignore that part too, right? Ignoring completely.
Ignoring the emotion part?
Ignoring your desire, attachment, and the passion, the love, the urge of the sex and all the things. You can ignore it. And
then why do?
Or repressing it, right? You're ignoring, repressing.
I see. So you mean the tendency to like...
Yeah. And then what happens? You see all disasters are happening, right?
Yeah. So
even a marriage couple, 50% of them, they are getting divorced.
Right.
But their business deal in the beginning is that part too, right? The sexuality is the couples, and comes in the deal when you get married, right? Sexual intercourse is very important. It's important, the deal, or it's an important part of their life that comes. If there's no sexual intercourse, or there is no sexual intimacy, or love intimacy, I don't know if people get married or not.
Right.
But then later on, and how you deal this, how you work it is. But normally many people, that part doesn't work, and then maybe their marriage fall apart, right? So that's I'm just saying in the normal life. So that's why Karmamudra says, this part we don't need to ignore or repress, right? So both couples are practitioners. You can bring them in as a practice.
So
that's why this kind of sexual intercourse is always existed with human life. But then the spiritual masters, and they see that potential and use this, or medis, or the Buddha's teaching, he turned it into a meaningful spiritual practice. That's called the Karmamudra.
When we encounter these emotions, you speak about desire, ignorance, aggression, these kind of experiences. Is the perception the question? When we see it or become aware of the arising of emotions, instead of seeing just energy, we're labeling, it as desire or anxiety or these qualities or emotions.
Mm-hmm.
So does our perception of those processes change as we practice, the Karmamudra.
Of course, it changed, yeah.
So when it begins as desire, if we don't reject it or engage in it, inhabit the desire, then it becomes something more expansive. So then how are we, in other words, seems like how I see me is changing how I see the desire, for example. Mm-hmm. So my view of myself as deity is the alchemy that changes the energy or the quality of energy.
Yes. Uh-huh.
Can you talk a little bit about that mechanics or chemistry?
Well, if you say...
So let's just pause for a moment. The negativity that the Dalai Lama was faced with, the invasion of his country, the destruction of Tibetan culture, this negativity, as Philip Glass said, somehow by responding to it, leaving Tibet, all this knowledge and wisdom came out into the world. So as we're discussing this spiritual practice of reinventing ourselves as spiritual beings who are in sexual union, our perception of our negativity, our perception of our problems, somehow gets modified or put into perspective because we're able to see, by not identifying with ourselves as we usually do, we can look perhaps at ourselves as an invention that can be related to differently. Let's listen a little more.
If you say, we have an emotion, you're a powerful meditator, you absorb, you have awareness, you can liberate your emotion too. But sexual urge and desire, it's a very difficult emotion. You make it, you make it disappear. Because it's not only in the mind, also it's physical too. If you are hungry, how you can refuse your hunger? You can say, it's a mental state too. But then your body is craving for that. Your
sensation,
body says,
the sensation.
Yeah, your body is saying, I need the food.
Yeah.
I'm starving, right?
Yeah.
I need the food. So then maybe if you're a powerful meditation, you starve yourself, and you can find a way. If you're not so strong, maybe you starve yourself until you get sick, right? So it's like we cannot say everything only mental level. There are many things physical level too. That's why especially the sexual desire, the love and the passion, there are so many hormones interconnected, right? We are, playing with those hormones. And these hormones are making our emotions and so on, right? So that's why just mentally to saying, okay, I want to block them. I want to deny them, refuse them. It doesn't work.
So somehow there's this experience of some kind of a gap, some kind of a relief, a break from our typical experiencing of ourself. Who am I? What am I? There's this sort of protection that somehow insulates us from our normal reactivity to ourselves, to our opinions, to our projections, to our judgments of other people, to self-judgment. And in the process of meditation, there's a kind of a placeholder where we can feel, we can dwell, we can abide quietly, having created this sort of dream self in the yoga practice, the mental yoga, mind yoga, and through that sort of interface or that sort of pause and non-conceptual experience, we can see deeper into our unconscious, deeper into our programming, deeper into our cultural history, our family history, the circumstances during our growth and education where we've developed a self that is kind of random, depending on when you're born, where you're born, etc. So there is this sort of mind that's watching the mind. There's a kind of awareness that if I'm in a bad mood, I'm not the mood. But I can use the mood to look at myself or to look at the way I'm seeing life differently.
So that's why what is the best way to use this kind of energy? So creation stage, you recreate yourself as the deities, whatever your deity is, Anuttara Yoga Tantra deity. And then you work with this, we call it the tigla, the drops. So I think the drops basically, we call Zega tigla, means the drop of substances. So the substance, the tigla, we can call them, they are hormones too.
Right.
So therefore, you're mastering, like when you master a meditation, especially something like Karmamudra, it means you master your hormones too, especially happy hormones, right?
So you're impacting the substance itself.
Yeah, of course. That's all about Tantra.
And substance generates sensation?
Yeah. We can't ignore that part. Yeah. We are made of substances. We are made of chemicals. We can't deny that, right? How many chemicals do we have? All our cells, right? Billions of billions, trillions, 37 trillions of cells. They need water, they need air, they need vitamins, they need the proteins, and they need minerals. They need so many things, right? They are natural chemicals. But in Tantra is not saying mind is functioning beside the body. The Tantra is lungar yermel, means inseparable, indivisible body and mind. So they are functioning together. This is the reason in Tantra we have to do the motions, yoga, exercises too.
So when you speak about physical intelligence, can you elaborate a little bit? Because I love this, and I try to teach this to physical intelligence. So much information coming, abundant information all the time.
Physical intelligence, in a very simple way, what we say, body knows what it needs. That's the physical intelligence. We are thirst, body is saying, oh, lack of water, drink water. We are hungry, body says, oh, eat this. Oh, maybe you need to eat that. I'm craving to something, this and that, right? That is already a base of body intelligence with the basic survival skills. But then the problem with the body intelligence is that body's intelligence is repressed by our addictions. You want to eat sugar again and again? Yeah, I love sugar. Oh, my body is saying sugar. That's not your body's intelligence. That's the repressed body intelligence, and your addiction is dictating your body's intelligence. Addiction says, give me more sugar. Give me more chocolate. Give me more alcohol. Give me more substances. Do you understand? So
can you make more list like that? Is like how I see myself. Can I be addicted to my picture of myself? Because when I was a little boy, they said, oh, John, he likes meat, So then I'm like, I like meat.
That's a condition, that's a condition. We get addicted because of different conditions, right? So addiction is an effect, and there's a condition why we get addicted. And then there's a root cause, right? A root cause. The root cause is your desire, your attachment, whatever you start to eat something, sugar. Like many people, they have sugar addiction. Sugar addiction is almost like a eating disorder, right? It's part of eating disorder. Why is it part of eating disorder? Maybe you are not hearing sweet words. Maybe your life is not sweet, right? Italians say, la vita dolce. So your life is not sweet. So you feel like you are rejected, you're abandoned, you're unloved, you're unwanted. So you taste too much bitterness, spicy, right? And sour, and I don't like this. I need something sweet. I wish somebody loves me, somebody's kinder to me, somebody this and that, right? Okay, I don't get this from human emotional connections. I just go take the real sweet stuff. And the more sweet, the more and I take the sweet, I feel it, right? So, body is taking that and mind is enjoying the sweet. Maybe that kind of sweetness is replacing the sweet is missing in your heart. The emotional sweetness is missing, so that's why you need to bring the physical sweet. And then what is the condition? Condition is the sweet companies and the productions, right? Whatever you snack, whatever you take, drink is sugar-added product, right? So you see there is a condition.
And the condition is exploited.
Exactly.
And the pattern grows.
Yeah.
It grows, becomes social, systemic.
Exactly. It's a systematic addiction. It's a plant like this, right? The giant factories, they know people want to eat and this and that, and they produce and they profit. People get sick, it's your choice. So smoke, it's your choice. I put this, so it says it can cause oral cancer and lungs cancer and colon cancer. I say this, don't you see the picture there? It's your choice.
Just for fun, I tell you, when I was living in Europe, because I had lots of trauma with cigarette smoke, and my parents dying, grandparents dying of cancer. So anyway, long story short, I asked 1,000 people to give me cigarette smoke in bags, and I sent back to the cigarette factory.
Oh.
As a kind of social art.
Yes. Oh, great.
Transform society through the culture activism. That's the kind of cultural activism. So it was quite beautiful because also the substance is coming out of the body.
Yeah.
And they're packaging this and sending it back to the factory. And about 10% of those people quit smoking. To learn more about Dr. Nida's work, you can visit his website at www.drnida.com. DRNIDA. And to learn more about Tibet House, you can go to thus.org, www.thus.org, where you can also find the film 30 Years Tibet House and perhaps make a donation to their fundraiser if you are so disposed. I have something a little interesting here in context of what we last discussed with Dr. Nida, which was kind of how to transform poisons into nectar, or how to work with negative emotions like desire, anxiety, hatred, and so on. This thing that I did with sending cigarette smoke back to cigarette factories, it's really kind of funny, but also pretty curious to change the power structure to have the consumers respond to the producers by sending a product back to the factories where the cigarettes were made. Anyway, we'll soon hear from the consumer avenger. Maria Fitzgibbon was born Maria Livernaise. Her parents were from Sicily and near Naples, Italy. And she has found a method of working with her experiences as a consumer. Sort of this came out around the same time of my smoke sculpture. And Maria finds ways of enabling and empowering people who work for big companies like Amazon to actually do what they're supposed to do.
Well, I don't understand that. Are you allowing for certain, maybe you have certain credits that are not appearing on this bill. I'm looking at a bill which is due today.
And her techniques are very interesting. We'll hear about consumer avenging in our next show.
So do you want to tell me, maybe you have some credits that I'm not aware of?
Thank you, and have a wonderful day. Here's Leonard Cohen.
The birds they sing at the break of day. Start again, I heard them say. Don't dwell on what has passed away, or what is yet to be. Yeah, the war, they will be fought again. The holy dove, she will be cut again. Bought and sold and bought again. The dove is never free. Ring the bells that still can ring. Forget your perfect offering.
WIOX is supported by the generosity of our listeners and the following community underwriters. The Mountain Eagle, a community newspaper and website serving the Catskills region, covering Delaware, Schoharie, Greene, and northern Ulster counties, with local reporting, regional events, school sports, letters, and features, all in the Mountain Eagle. Peekamoose Restaurant on State Route 28 in Big Indian, with farm-to-table cuisine Thursday through Monday. Indoor dining from 4 to 9 p.m. Takeout till 10. Peekamoose.com or 845-254-6500, 845-254-6500.